Hey folks, Steve here with a very special video for you today. We are going to be kicking off my 1942 campaign game of Empire of the Sun, which will be played solitaire with the CDG solo system from GMT, designed by Stuka Joe, but specifically also looking at the Erasmus bot charts to kind of help guide play. Not because I can't play for play the game myself, but just I want to see the way that this game's systems really play out, and this is a way for me to experience as much of that as I can, with surprises able to be experienced as a solitaire player in a card-driven context. I don't usually do card-driven games on the channel here, so this is an opportunity for me to do so. I actually quite like card-driven games, but they don't solo quite the same, don't solo quite as good as other games because of the hidden information. The CDG solo system is certainly a way for us to do that, and this is a game that I've long wanted to get played, period, and I just haven't had a good opportunity to do it. So this is now the time I'm taking to do it. And in this scenario, we're basically picking up where the example of play leaves off. And honestly, like when I looked at the setup, having played through the example of play, following along and keeping tabs on kind of what matters there, it almost leaves you exactly set up for the 1942 turn, excepting that there are reinforcements and replacements and stuff that would occur between turns one and turn two, but that is kind of done for you in the campaign setup for 1942. So that means a couple of things. If you watch the last video where we talked about the example of play, the carrier units in Oahu have been reinforced up to full strength. There's a whole mess of allied reinforcements in the delay box that will show up eventually. And even the Japanese got a little bit of stuff coming in, as well as it looks like the uh, the Japanese have pulled a unit replacement step out of the China theater count. So a little bit of an adjustment, but not very much really from the way we played through the example of play. So we're pretty much all ready to go. So we're going to get this underway. How I'm going to do this, I think I'm going to try to cover like a turn. I think a turn per, yeah, I think a turn per video, maybe, if we can manage it. But how this is going to work, I'm going to shift the camera view over here for a moment and show you the CDG method stuff. Come on, camera. There we go. So I have them situated here. Now, I don't have the hand size markers in the right place yet, but the Japanese player per normal Empire of the Sun rolls is going to have, I believe it's 7 card plays on turn 2. They actually get, this is stored up war supply to get them along far enough that ideally we will have captured enough resource hexes on the map to have 6 or 7 cards into the rest of the game until the Allies push us back. So the Japanese player has a lot of options. I believe the Allied player is only going to have a handful of cards that they're going to be able to use, not as many. Yeah, the Allied receives 5 cards and 2 passes. So there are some passes we need to keep in mind. The Allies will get to play 5 cards. At the setup here, we are using the historical card setup opening hand option, and the Allies have taken their Arcadia conference option. So as we're looking here, and I'm just going to like zoom in a little bit, might be a little wonky here. The Allies have the Arcadia conference card, which they'll have as an option at the outset. We don't know the rest of the setup until I flip over these 2 cards here. We don't know what those are yet. We'll see what they are when we get underway. And then the Japanese player has these cards predetermined for them, and they're all pretty darn good cards. We have this Colonel Suji Unit 82, Jungle Warfare, which is a 2 ops card, so like not bad, but specifically allows the activation of any HQ with a logistics value of 3 and allows a surprise attack, which is going to be really good generally. However, the conditions on it are that only Japanese ground units may be activated. So we won't really get as much oomph out of the surprise attack because of that, because surprise tends to help more with the air naval combat. Um, but we'll get some other bonuses. Any ground combat that occurs in a Malaya, jungle, or mixed terrain hex for the duration of the offensive, the final die roll modifier for the Japanese in any ground battle is +4. The final die roll modifier. So you almost get to ignore all other circumstances and just have a +4. That would be a great card, I think, to crack the border of Siam at Burma, because I think that would qualify. We would also very likely be able to make a lot of progress in the Malayan Peninsula itself, heading towards Singapore. So that's like an obvious, like, good card, accepting that we just have to accept that we're only using ground units, right? We're only going to do ground. That kind of makes it really selective. Arguably, we could also use that card in the Philippines, but I don't think it would be as effective as elsewhere. Now, we also have the Central Forces Conquest of Borneo. Now, keep in mind, I could use these cards as ops cards and just kind of do whatever I want with them, but the events tend to be a little bit stronger. It's just they're constraining you to a specific type of activity. Now, for this one, if you can't read that because I don't have a good zoom on it, that's okay. I'll tell you. We have to activate either the South or the South Seas HQs only, which puts us, basically either in the South Pacific region, or operating near like French Indochina and Borneo. And then we'd have a logistics value of 5, which is fairly strong. And we'd also have paratroopers. So prior to movement, place a Japanese control marker in a hex that is within extended range of an active Japanese air unit. So you have to activate that air unit as part of this offensive, or is occupied solely by a Dutch regiment and the hex is not within an unneutralized Allied zone of influence. Eliminate the Dutch regiment. So that would certainly help us nab a couple of places in Borneo. There are some hexes there that, if we can get some freebies and just grab that right away and get those resources under control, like, that's a very fine thing to do. We could even split the difference a little bit there, where we could get some of Borneo, but we could still activate several units in support of attacks in the Philippines and help to wrap up the Philippines. So that, like, there's some options with that we could work with. And then finally, we have the VADM Condo card, Conquest of the Dutch East Indies, which would see us activate, again, the South or South Seas HQ, a logistic value of 7, which is really quite good. And we get float plane tactics. A Japanese CA naval unit would add 2 to their attack strengths for the duration of this offensive. So that would be certainly some helpful bits. Now, the tricky part is, right now we don't have a lot in the Dutch East Indies at large. So to execute that card, we're going to give up progress somewhere else if we try to use it for other purposes. And obviously, taking out the Dutch East Indies early is really good for us getting the resource hexes that we're going to need to keep stable throughout. But we still have lots of options. Like, we could focus a lot on taking out the Philippines. That might be really useful just to get that all cleared out. We don't have that as a worrisome thing in our backfield. But that's the timer that's ticking. Obviously, if we pick South Seas, we could also alternatively try to take another swing at Wake Island, though we would need some carriers diverted over to support that. And that probably wouldn't work at the moment, or it would be tougher to make work. So Yeah, lots of things we need to keep in mind for this, guys, and that's why I'm looking at Erasmus to kind of help line up the choices here because the game is really open. Like you can, in theory, do a lot of different things, but the con is that you could maybe do really, really suboptimal things and really screw yourself up in a game where like you really can just activate whatever is on the map with a fair amount of points. Like, what are you giving up if you do one thing versus the other? And I think my unfamiliarity with the strategy of this game is going to be a challenge. Now, if I were just playing, again, World in Flames, Axis Empires, something like that, I would have a pretty general idea of like what I want to try to do because I would have like my whole turn to activate everything and do something with everything. Here, it's metered out in the operations of the card play, so I really have to think about like in this snapshot of time, um, where you think about it right, like each turn is maybe a couple months, each card is effectively like a week or two. What can I get done this week? What is the operation that my command team is saying we're going to go do X? What is the X? That can be a little hard to look at here, and so that you don't underestimate. If I don't knock out the Dutch East Indies, the Allies could reinforce it heavily, and then I never really make the progress I need on those resource hexes, and I screw up my economy by having smaller hands the rest of the game. So we can't get like tunnel visioned on Burma. We can't get tunnel vision on the Philippines or Wake Island. Like I need to focus on the grand war plan, which is ensuring that I have the resources to end up in a better position later on. So that's where my head is at. Got to play it through. Got to figure it out. I would really love to eventually get some time to knock down Burma and cut off the Burma Road. And if I were able to do that and at least hold that position, I would then be forcing the Allied side of my brain to spend cards building the transport routes in northern India to help restore supply, which is going to cost them a bunch of card plays. And in the meantime, I might be making really great progress in the China war, playing China offensives, and ideally knocking that track down so that we could force China to surrender. I think that'd be really great. Um, and so I'm going to do my level best to avoid drawing steps away from the Japanese units in China track because I do want to have some really great Chinese offensive victories and help bring that in because the political will knocks from a Chinese surrender would be fantastic to achieve. And that's really how we're going to win as the Japanese, right? We're going to try to knock down the U.S. Political will. A lot of different ways to try to manage that. We'll do what we can. So I believe I should be revealing cards A and B on the Allied track, and uh, if that's not how this is supposed to go, I'm going to do it anyway. So we get S Day, Invasion of Luzon. So this would be a fine card to be getting into what, Philippines again, maybe? If the 11th Airborne Division is on an airfield not activated, so you can see that. This is a fairly strong card. I don't know that we're gonna be able to make, like, this would be a strong card, period. I don't know that the Allies are in a good position to make use of it. And then we have Personage, Ord Wingate, Chindits. Oh, the Chindits, okay. This would cancel the act. This is a reaction card that we could potentially use. You can use reaction cards in the solo system. Cancel the activation of one Japanese ground unit that activated in Burma or northern India. Player's choice. Place the deactivating unit back in its starting hex. Okay. And then they're going to gain this unit as a reinforcement next game turn. Now, it says it's activated in Burma I do not have any Japanese units in Burma yet. Not yet. They're near the border of Burma, but they're not in Burma proper, I don't believe. So we might have to wait to play this. That's kind of the rub. Now, the CDG solo system, the way this will ultimately work, is we will roll a die, this special die that we use for the solo system, and this will tell us like what cards are at our option, like what can we pick to play, and we will use the system here that will tell us like, okay, if we rolled, let's say that first one, C or the lowest face-up ops card or future offensive card. If not already face-up, you flip the top card of the deck. You play card C or the lowest valued face-up ops card in slots A, B, D, or E for any allowable purposes. Yeah. So in this case, if you just imagine for a second we rolled that as the allies, we would basically get to play Arcadia Conference, right? Which we might want to play anyway. Or we'd have to play uh, the card with the lowest ops value in A or... Okay, so we would only be able to choose that reaction card and basically forego being able to hold on to it as a reaction card. We'd have to play it. We'd have to play Arcadia Conference or that card. We'd probably just play Arcadia Conference, which would exclude our ability to play S Day, which might be, conventionally in a normal game of Empire of the Sun, you might be really itching to play that card immediately to try to respond to something the Japanese player is doing. So that's where the uncertainty comes in here, and will eventually reveal the cards in D and E, and these things will start to percolate. Now, it's entirely possible I'm going to screw something up with the solo system, like I'm going to do it wrong at some point, or maybe I will not have like put the cards in the right place. Fortunately, like if you screw it up, it doesn't matter because you're still just playing a solitaire game of Empire of the Sun. So thankfully, the pressure is low in that regard for this. The gameplay really is what matters. Like, are we being successful in the things that we're trying to achieve in the game? That's the key thing. So we're going to try to do that. So yeah. Oh, I did set the cards remaining properly on the Allied track. I did do that. Okay, well then I'm good, guys, and we're good. So we start this campaign with the operations phase. We just jump immediately into working our way through the game, which means I'm going to have to decide on my card and decide on a strategy. So I think I'm going to want to lean on the Erasmus flowchart and kind of show my thinking on how we want to use this, and then I'll start playing through the operations. Okay, so before we actually get into like the action of activations, with 1942 scenario, we do get an emergency naval move as the Allies before things get underway, and I've made those moves, and we're going to talk about them because I cheated a little bit and I trounced around session reports on the internet to see like, well, what do people do? Because I don't know. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't know what I would do with these guys. So I stick them all in Manila, and then they all get chewed up anyway. Like they don't really make that big a difference in the taking of Manila. Maybe they delay it. That could be valuable. But what else could we do with these things? And I came across a session report that said I sent the ships all to these places, the standard, or it did like standard ENM, emergency naval move, and he described the movement. If this is truly standard, I have no idea, but it seemed like a good idea at the time, so I did it. So let's talk about what we did. Well, first of all, I'm gonna kind of go from like, I'm gonna curve around this way to talk about what we did. We sent the executor. I'm probably not pronunciation, guys. I mean, I'm really bad at it, right? I read these things. I don't hear these things, right? I'm a book guy, ideally. Um, so moved him from, I think we had them originally in Ceylon, went to Rangoon. Now, why would we do that? So I want to talk about like why is this the right move, or why is this the the move that is considered standard? Well, it adds air naval combat protection to Rangoon. So if the Japanese player said, I'm going to be sneaky and I'm going to try to make a big move on Rangoon as an amphibious assault with pressure from Siam, that would, maybe that would be the ticket. We'd get Rangoon, and then that would instantly close the Burma Road and start to pressure the need for the allied player to spend a bunch of time building those roads, and those are a bit expensive as it matters. So okay, there's that protection, and when it leads Ceylon empty, and boy, I'm always worried about Madras. So like what about that? And I guess you're making a play here. You're having to make a decision on what you want to protect. What is under threat from the Japanese player right now, not just at large. And even if I tried to launch a amphibious assault, right? You figure, well, what if I used a 3 ops card as the Japanese? 3 times 5, 15 hexes for naval movement. Um, would I actually be able to get to many places? Well, if I were to try to leave here, which, he's destined to fight for Singapore, can't really use those guys. But if I tried to, like, take somebody else off, it could be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I could hit that with a 3 ops card, going from here to here. Uh, but I wouldn't be able to get out to here, Madras. Um, you try to do this another way, go from here, it's about the same number of hexes. So just the game position of the Japanese, even on a 3 ops card, 15 hexes of naval movement, I don't think we can really get out to here. And we actually can't land in Madras anyway, because that's uh, mainland India, so that has restrictions on it as it is. But I can't really even expect necessarily to get all the way out to the places. I think I do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13. I could try to go for Dhaka. Unfortunately, it's got its own air protection. So the Japanese couldn't really pick on that either. So it's sort of this thing, like, we maybe couldn't quite get out to Ceylon, or that would be kind of the tough thing. We could get maybe out to Trincomalee. And again, forgive my pronunciation, terrible with some of these things. I guess I could use the internet. How to pronounce this place? I could do that, guys. I guess I could. So that move is sensical to say, like, hey, you know what? We really can't afford to lose Rangoon. We can't afford to lose the Burma Road early, because that would unlock, clean offensives. Um, right? It would move this marker over here to Burma Road closed, which then makes it like, we could play China offensives and win every time, and make really great progress in the early war, where we still have a lot of steps in China. So that makes sense to me. Don't want to lose Ceylon necessarily, because it'd be hard to get back into it. But moving that to Rangoon to make it harder, that makes sense. And then I'm going to mention, and I'm going to try to rotate my camera a little bit so you can see. We have these blue U.S. Asia units. We also have the Dutch light cruiser. So this is really interesting, and it's a move that I would have totally blanked on, because this is an unplayable water hex side. There's not really a lot of use in having this cruiser set up here like it does at game start, and that rebase emergency move you can just stick kind of wherever. Sticking it on Batavia is helpful, because now Batavia is one of the important hexes in the Dutch East Indies period. So putting again some air naval protection over that hex. So now we have the Dutch Air Force. We also have the light cruisers. That's a very sensible move, and a freebie, right? Like, this is a free move we get. We might as well protect something. Then we've got these destroyers, the U.S. Asia Destroyer Flotilla, which was somewhere over here, pulling that back to Surabaya. Again, terrible pronunciation, guys. I'm embarrassing myself every day I record when I do this stuff. Sticking it here. It is otherwise empty. Now, these guys are going to get squished, but I can at least try to delay the fall of the Dutch East Indies over here by putting something to defend it, so something's better than nothing. So swapping that over, I guess that's a fine decision. And then we had the other one that I think is somewhere over in the Philippines, and it's the U.S. Asia Cruiser unit, and we've stuck it in Bayak. Now, this one I'm a little less certain of as to why this is a good choice or maybe not a good choice. When I think about it, if I look at it, really, it's like it's at least putting something in the New Guinea area, in particular, a naval base that would give some level of protection. And if we had to do a response, or if we rolled intelligence, we could stick it into Vogelkop. We could also maybe help protect Hollandia if we had to. So this is a nice central area to where even if we don't have a lot of naval movement to make, because we can only respond with an one ops equivalent movement and reaction as the allied player, I'm at least covering some of New Guinea, albeit with a very weak unit. So like that, I think that is sensical from that perspective. And then the final one here, and maybe I need to adjust the camera even more, but I'm just going to show it this way. We have the Australian Kent cruiser unit, which was down here in Australia proper, and we've simply shifted it up to Gilly Gilly. Now, I suspect, again, this is like a proximity thing. Being way down there doesn't necessarily help us. If we get a free move, we're essentially being able to put some defensive bits further up front so that the Japanese have less easy pickings, and that cruiser unit can potentially react, out of the Gilly Gilly hex into a number of places in the Solomon Islands and the Marshall Islands to be able to at least contest something. And so it's a fine place to put it. We still have some defense in Port Moresby. So these are all sensible moves. I think if you were totally new and you weren't using an example like a session report like I did, and now you're watching this video, so now you know to do these things, I think it'd be really easy to totally miss the bus on it, right? It's one bullet point in the special rules for the scenario that the Allies get this emergency naval move. And like, what would you even do with that, right? Like, what would you even bother to try to do? I think if you're just excited to get the game going, you'd say, bah, I'm not going to move anything. And then, sure enough, you're missing out on some capabilities for improved defense. So hopefully this segment of the video is helpful to you in this respect that, this is, I don't know how standard it truly is. Like, is this the move that everybody makes? But I don't know where else you would see this recommendation other than an actual play or at tournaments like WBC or something where everybody does it and then you're unpacking why does everybody do it. Hopefully this helps. I think it helps my head, a little bit, my brain of like, oh yeah, of course. Now that I see it in action and I think about the why of it, not just the what, it does make some sense. Now, are there other options that you could take with your emergency naval move? I'm sure there are, and folks in the comment section down below, if you've got a strategy around the emergency naval move, I'd love to hear about it because I felt uncertain. Again, I'm very out of my element here. If this were any other sort of strategic level World War II game like World in Flames, Axis Empires, or the like, I probably would. You just it's a different mechanic, right? You're doing these things very differently. You get your whole turn to yourself, so it's more about what are you doing with all your units on your turn, based on whatever resources you have, like oil that you might have to spend to do it with. But you can think through the whole turn. Here we just get this little bite-sized maneuver, and that could be critically important and something you could easily screw up and could have lasting game effects. So there you go. That's the emergency naval move. We are now going to switch gears to the Japanese card play, and we're going to be leveraging our CDG solo system charts to support that. Okay, so we're going to try. I've got the camera at an angle. It's not quite the way that I'm looking at this, so the audio might seem a little weird because I'm going to be coming from like the right side. So I'm going to lean, I guess, and talk so the audio is okay. Uh, so here's the solo displays, right? We talked about this. I'm going to roll the die. So this is the, you want to role play this a little bit. I'm expecting, if we're talking the military command of Japan here, what are the operations? What are the options? What are we doing next here? Are we going to continue the invasion, the Blitz in Southeast Asia? How are we going to operate here, guys? Let's figure that out. Granted, a lot of this stuff would have been uh, all kind of pre-planned and execution, but what are we going to focus on this week? So we're going to roll a die somewhere. Somewhere I have it. Here it is, special die. Okay, so now that's one I'm not as familiar with. I'm going to use my handy dandy sheet. And so for this one, guys, the way this is going to work, oh, you can see my reflection. Face up event card or lowest face up ops card. There's only one or two face up cards in the display. Flip anyone face down, card face up until I play any face up event card or play the lowest valued face up ops card for any allowable purpose. There are multiple lowest value ops. Okay. So this is not super helpful because in our case, this is basically like we can play whatever we want. Because the ops cards, well, I guess, hold on. We do have this one, which is the lowest ops card. So, play any face-up event card or play the lowest valued face-up ops card for any allowable purpose. Um, hmm. Well, the funny part is we have good events, so this still reads to me like I can pick whichever one I want. Uh, so, song remains the same, guys. We're on the historical path. We can focus on the conquest of the Dutch East Indies. We could focus on the conquest of Borneo. We could be pushing jungle warfare, which is going to take the shape probably of expansion in. Um, Let me check the terrain of Manila really quick, because yeah, that's mixed. Okay. Uh, we could leverage this to help with the Philippines. So, kind of an open question, like what do we want to try to do? And so I will now refer to my personal advisor Erasmus to help me because I am a helpless Empire of the Sun baby and I need help. Uh, let's see. So how would we use this? Well, ordinarily I would be reading the full solo method rules. I don't need to do that for the purposes that I'm looking at because I'm really just using the flow charts for some guidance. So ordinarily, yes, there's a separate, slimmer little rule book that you would read to fully comprehend the solo bots so that you could play against them as a artificial opponent. We're just gonna look and we're gonna see what we got. So we're gonna look at this, and I'm gonna look at the Erasmus bot opening phase because we are at the opening phase, axis determination. So we start. A question: are Allied HQs in the Philippines, Dutch East Indies, yeah, are they out of supply in Malaya? So if I were to look over at the map, I'm not going to move the camera. Uh, let's see. Oh, I wonder if they're out of. No, I don't suppose that they are. I don't think that they are. I think the Manila HQ is still in supply because they have an air unit that is projecting a zone of influence uh, that is capable of neutralizing Japanese zones of influence over Manila, and we can trace east out of the Philippines eventually to a supply source, and then I would believe at the moment that the Malaya HQ in Singapore is also in supply at the moment, as best as I can tell, based on how I understand that works. So, and I guess I could always double check, carefully in other situations. I think that's true. So they are not out of supply. Okay. So they're not out of supply. I believe them to be in supply. So we're going to go to no. Does Japan have more than 3 cards? Yes, that is true. Does Japan control less than 13 resource hexes? Yes, that is also true, which means we go to F. Is the logistics evaluation? Okay. So this is where we kind of need to be a little more educated on the rules here. Is the logistics evaluation value 20 or more? So let's just look at if we have lots of logistics capability, and we've got some good cards. So let's be clear here, guys. Like, I feel like the answer is probably going to be yes, but I'd have to look at that. The Erasmus is advising us that we should be following through an air superiority strategy. Whether it's conservative or aggressive is what's really, unclear. And these two are kind of split because it's in alphabetical order. If we were aggressive, we would be working to neutralize allied HQs and trying to drive, if we had done that, we would be aiming to drive DEI surrender or Malaya surrender. That's pretty sensical. The conservative is, still to neutralize allied HQs and neutralize the DEI or maybe force surrender. Now you might wonder, like, why are we not going after the Philippines? And I think that requires a different set of activities. Like, we will have needed to, like, booted the HQs out. So if you look at the other priority, right, let's say, just as we're exploring this for the first time, I've actually looked at these charts before, so this is not the first time for me, but what if you said, well, what if we had done that? Like, what if they were all out of supply, even though at the moment I don't believe that they are? Are the DEI surrender objectives occupied? If the answer is no, then let's see, no, yes. All right, so what we would eventually be going for is a southern resource strategy, which somewhere in here is going to tell me what that is. Oh, yeah, okay. So DEI surrender, Malaya surrender, Philippine surrender. So Erasmus, if you're really looking at this and you're like totally clueless, and maybe for those folks that are unfamiliar with the Pacific War, some of these things were all happening kind of slowly over time. Like, when did the Philippines actually surrender? When were the holdouts eventually, put under unfortunate circumstances? It took some time, right? Like, these were not, like, Singapore did not fall immediately, but getting the DEI under control and getting the oil, which in this game it's represented by resource hexes, is basically the strategy that we would want to pursue. So I think that puts us more likely to pick either this card or this card to operate with, and then we're going to try to, while other stuff is going on, right, what we're going to aim to do is try to further, we can do this at the same time, right? Like, I can activate enough units to chip away at Borneo and chip away at the air cover and supplies tracing of these HQs while I make progress. I think I can do it. And for that, I am probably leaning more towards VADM Condo because it gets us more logistics value, which means we can activate more stuff, which enables us to knock things down more. Though I feel like it would be beneficial to try to roll up the central force first, because then that gives us, if we take some of the hexes in Borneo and we make some progress, then we can follow up with VADM Condo stronger, because we've got, closer basing. I would just be afraid of, not doing enough to disrupting the Philippine situation. So I think that's my struggle now, and I have to, like, actually make a decision on what card I want to play. I think I'm partial to Central Force right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go work this out. In an opposed game, like this wouldn't happen, right? Like you would be like, okay, play your card, man. Like go, we're on a timer. Got dinner at 6 or whatever. I can take as much time as I want. I'm going to really try to think through what I want to do here, and this will happen off camera because boy, these segments are getting long because I'm talking a lot, guys. We're gonna see what we can do. I'm going to try to neutralize allied HQs, what that really means for us, right? Knocking them out of supply, making it so they can't activate. And if they can't activate, that means we're really not in danger of counterattack. So I do want to blanket that. That means eliminating allied air and ensuring that our own air-based ZOIs are covering or smothering their HQs, so now they can't actually, trace supply because that we have an unneutralized ZOI over them. So that's like the primary objective that Erasmus is advising. That's going to make everything else easier. I do need to be picking up resource hexes anyway, and I do need to eventually force both the Dutch East Indies and Malaya to surrender. So like I need to think about those immediate objectives. The Philippines we can chip away at more over time. That's probably what I'll use this card for here in the turn. And just knowing that, at least for the moment, the allies don't have a great amount of ability to respond. Their Chindits card are likely not going to be able to be used for anything we're doing right now, and then they're going to be forced into deciding are they, what their options will be based on the die roll, I guess. But we have a really good opening. We're going to make use of that, try to get those resource hexes under control, and go from there. So off camera, I'm gonna try to go play through this, show the aftermath, and explain it. If I were to show every movement, guys, we would be here forever, and I don't want you to have to do that. We'll work it out. So yeah, be back here in a second for you. Okay, here we are after the initial Japanese activation. It's gone very swimmingly, though I wonder if I've misprioritized what I did with my card play. We'll deal with that as we go here. So critically, what's occurred, it was a little bit of a surprise. I did play the Kondo card for an event, so that I wouldn't be forced to play the 2 card in our available solo system track. And it's a good card. And the reason I did is because I could activate so many units, which means I could have a very strong effect quickly and ideally shut a lot of things down. Now that took the form, and this is, now that we're talking the more tactical bits, I could get some stuff wrong. I decided to focus in on Manila while I could, and then be able to post-battle movement my air units further south with the idea that we're going to be able to use the Borneo card next. I switched. I didn't use Central Force. I used the Kondo card. So that's one thing I decided to switch. Looking at the map, because I'd like to get a freebie on this hex potentially, and then kind of finish up Borneo and basically use the rest of those activations from this next card for the Japanese on the Dutch East Indies itself. I should have enough units in range to make that work, and basically shut the rest of that down. That would be very ideal for us. So that's where I'm thinking, but I also wanted to make sure that I've reduced the Allied capability to respond as much as possible. So what I did, I played the card, I did my movement and set up everything for battle hexes. And I think the Japanese are getting away like bandits. Like having this kind of a die result so early feels very fortuitous. The Allies rolled their intelligence check. Now, the event card for Kondo, if you're doing it as an event, the value is a 7, right? And we count zeros as 0 on the 1d10 dice that we roll in this game. So we actually have an 80% chance by itself of being able to turn that into some kind of intercept result, ideally, or doing something. So you would think there'd be some bloody results. I had to make sure the card didn't say surprise attack on it. It was conceivable that the Allies could have turned that into an intercept and maybe either reacted units into the battle hexes or reacted out or did something to where the then Japanese wouldn't have the attack bonus die roll modifiers, surprise attack modifiers on air naval combat. But the Allies rolled a 9 for their die. So ordinarily, that would just be a failure on the dice, right? 9 is higher than 7. However, because we were moving units around the air ZOIs of the Allies, there's a -2 to the die roll, which would actually get us to 7, which would make a difference. However, a 9, an unmodified 9 on the die, is still an automatic, failure in the system, which means the Allies were caught totally unaware. So they are unaware from the first week, and they're still not understanding what's happening. I don't know, which meant that in the actual combats, it was a clean sweep, basically, very clean sweep, and we've done well. But part of me is like, I don't know if I really accomplished all the things I want. Like, am I really? Was this an optimal play or not? That I'm not sure about. I sent this air unit down through, and I attacked Singapore, and I managed to clear their air. And now in post-battle movement, this air unit, their ZOI is over the HQ in Malaya, which I believe keeps it from being in supply. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that to be the case because it's unneutralized, and now there's no air units in the immediate vicinity. This guy could maybe, they could work something out, but the pressure is on. And now that HQ can't be used for activation, so maybe they can't. You know what I mean? There's an air unit, a Dutch air unit down here, but I don't think they're going to be able to activate. Pending Allied card play for Arcadia, of course. That may make the difference here. That will really matter over the course of the campaign. I then also did a sort of, quick invasion. Some of the stuff came here in post-battle movement, but we did a landing using a carrier, and we used some of our shipping points to move one of the armies that was in Davao over, and we took this resource hex in Borneo. That was a pretty clean, hit. And then the intention here is that I'm going to use all these units that in post-battle movement I moved to that hex to be the springboard to get into these main island areas of the DEI on the next card play. That's the thinking anyway. They're set up, they're going to push then and try to make that clean cut on the Dutch East Indies, and that should put us in a pretty good position through the rest of the turn. And then finally, the big thing, I did focus in on Manila. So I kind of overcommitted some air because, again, I wanted to use post-battle movement to get one of those air units down here, which is how I did that. And then a terrestrial, attack over into Manila rather than an amphibious invasion kind of made that like it was almost guaranteed. And then in the ensuing die rolls, again, Japan kind of came out ahead in the combat die rolls where they've really not suffered any losses. They did wipe out the defenders of Manila thanks to the ground combat die rolls achieving a 2 times factor result, which enabled the clearing in totality of the Manila defenders. So, these remnant Philippine defenders, they really can't do anything on offense. Like there's really nothing for them to do. They're stuck. They're not going to be able to activate because their HQ got bounced to the turn track. The SW Pacific, Southwest Pacific HQ got dinged out. So assuming nothing crazy happens here, guys, like that, the Philippines are cooked. They're done. And that's nice on early first card play. Philippines are done. I like that. That's great. Assuming the Allies don't somehow get something else to occur there, I've got to be careful that I've not left Davao underdefended. Hard to say right now. I don't know. But either way, like we're doing just fine. We're gonna be just fine. And so that's it, guys. Like post battle move, it's complete. Generally, I succeeded in what I wanted to do, which is put the HQs out of sorts, which was sort of the Erasmus primary objective. I have also lined things up that on the subsequent card play that we'll get to, assuming I can pick the card that I want in the solo system, the Japanese should be able to leap into the Dutch East Indies, uh, islands of Sumatra and Java, and take the required hexes from there. We should have the strength to do so. And then, and if I dedicate all of the unit activations from that card, well, I mean, what we'll do is we'll gain control of Balikpapan from the special effect of that next card, and then the actual activations would be dedicated to grabbing Batavia, whatever. I got to look at the hex list, but the remaining hexes that are going to be needed for Dutch surrender, these guys I'm not particularly concerned with at the moment. They don't have a lot of capability to be leveraged. So the main thing is I need to get in here, clear that out, so that again at the end of this turn, ideally, assuming nothing else crazy happens, like we should see the collapse of the surrender of the Philippines. A lot of work towards the DEI surrendering. Malaya, we'll see how the other card plays go. So good result, I think. Now, the Sharks that play Empire of the Sun enough that they know this game in and out, and I do think, some of these card-driven games that have the very particular rules and the very particular cards, as opposed to a like at-scale strategic game like a World in Flames or Axis Empires, like the Sharks learn these card combos. They learn the card states and the map states tied to the cards, and you can build an immense amount of expertise where you truly can have competitive play that is around how well do you know the game. And I don't have that. So somebody could look at this and go, Steve, you dingus, you should have done everything you could to be taking those hexes in the Dutch East Indies and not worry about the Philippines right away. I'm sure that that's a valid thing that I'm screwing up here, and maybe I've left some hexes under defended when I should be more heavily defending them in my conquests. If that's true, let me know, but I still feel better knowing, like, okay, the Philippines are basically done. So long as I don't make any foolish mistakes leaving stuff empty, like that should hold. The Allies are still knocked back on their heels, and their ability to respond is basically going to be limited to their HQ all the way in Hawaii, and really those units are not going to be able to affect much all the way, where we're at the moment, or at least we should have a lot of ability to respond. So I'm feeling good about that. That's great. Let's go look at now the Allied situation, and just to show the way that this works. Now that I've played my card, I've set my discarded card over here. We're going to leave this like this for now, but we will eventually like flip the card in section C. These are the two cards we know about that we have access to for the next card play. And now the Allies are going to have to roll theirs. They've got this card Arcadia Conference. That would get them an HQ back on the board. That feels like that would be useful, but again, we've got some other options, and the die roll is going to matter for that. All right, so we're going to roll the die for the Allied play. Oh, before I forget, cards remaining 6 for the Japanese player. So that's how we represent that, in case you're unfamiliar with the solo system. As we go, as we play our cards, even cards in reaction, often we will need to slide that shit over, because that's a card that would be in our virtual hand, essentially. So of our 7 cards, outnumbering the Allied 5 cards, the Allies do have 2 passes, which I'm tracking on the game track, not here, though I wonder if I should stick it on here. I don't know. But that's the situation we've got. So now the Allies are going to play. We could pass, right? But let's see what our good pal Erasmus wants to do. Same story, right? We're going to role play. Joint Chiefs of Staff, however you want to look at it. Hey, what are our options? We're getting our butts kicked all over the Pacific. What are we doing? Well, we could, working through the Arcadia Conference, get another United Allied Command HQ deployed and organized, and put people in charge to help manage the situation. That seems like an intelligent way to go. We've got some, if the Japanese had really got into Burma, we could maybe activate Chindits, but That is otherwise a small ops card. Try to make some inroads against the Japanese by just activating units to perform purposes. We also have a bigger operation that we could plan. That could be a big effort. It's just we don't really have the units on the board to make the best use of that right now, and our HQs are just out of a sort. So that feels like if I'm going to try to preempt Erasmus, I think we're going to try to say, let's get an HQ back on the board, to be honest, because otherwise we can't really do anything. Like our operational capability is so hampered right now that we're in trouble. So let's look at the Erasmus bot for the Allies. We go to our special advisor, Mr. Erasmus, and what is it that we have? Do the Allies have 3 or more cards? Technically, yes. Yes, we do. Are there in supply Allied HQs in the Philippines? Let's see. Well, yeah, that's going to be a no because the HQ in the Philippines got booted out. So now we go to C. Are there in supply Allied HQs in Malaya? I don't think so, because again, I've cut off the HQ supply line with my Air ZOI as Japan. So I'm going to say that's no. And then we get to, has the Arcadia event been played? That's a no. So just as we imagined, they're saying establish the ABDA command, which is going to be with the Arcadia card, right? And we look at place the ABDA HQ in the first available port provided in the list. We have Jap. I'm terrible with that. That's going to be bad. Let's see. We still control Jap. So that would be the first option. So I think that's what we've got to try to do. Now we'll see what the die roll actually tells us we can do. That's the uncertainty part. I think we've got a clear strategy. Like we need to get our act together. We need to get a command established in the Dutch East Indies that is very clearly the next target, as everything else is falling around us. Well, let's give it a shot. We're going to give it a roll. What do we get? We get ABC, which is going to make it easy for us, I think. If not already face up, flip all the face down cards in slots A, B, and C. Yeah, they're all up. Play A, B, or C for any allowable purpose or future offensive card. If empty, we would refill. Okay, so we will be able to do this. We are going to play Arcadia Conference as the Allied move. So this is a political event card. This event ends inter-service rivalry. Well, that wasn't in place anyway. Then there is something here. There's some special card cases. Okay, that doesn't apply for this card. All right. Yeah, the Allied player receives the ABDA HQ, which is placed in any in-supply port in Java, Borneo, blah, blah, blah. If no such port is available, this HQ is removed from play for the remainder of the game. Okay, and I believe that Jap is in supply. We don't have any Japanese ZOI covering it, and we're removing from play if used as an event. So I'm going to just set it over here rather than my discard pile over there. So that's done. And this is the actual ABDA HQ. So it's got a range of 12, logistics support of 1. I'm going to stick that in Jap, where it joins and is adjacent to Batavia. So here it is stacked with the strongest Dutch East Indies unit and an air unit. And this restores the capability of the Allies to activate units and operate in the region. It can't get into here, but it does mean we're going to be able to, in the event of further action in the Dutch East Indies, be able to respond to those guys, respond to those activities, be able to activate some stuff in response. So that is some goodness for the Allies. Again, maybe an imperfect situation, but this is the part of the game where the Allies feel the weakest, so we should really not feel surprised by that. Our cards remaining goes down. We would draw a replacement card face down, but the deck is there, so we can just leave it be. And we go back to the Japanese. Okay, with it being back in the Japanese perspective, we're going to pursue. Yeah, the ABDA command does make this tricky. The allies can now respond to our operations, but we're gonna try to push through anyhow, and we're gonna go ahead and roll the die. I mean, if I were to, I guess I should. I need to get my own feel for this. Am I better to reference Erasmus before the die roll or after? I feel like before the die roll will help inform whether I think the die roll is a good one or a bad one. So if I'm looking at the Erasmus bot, are Allied HQs in the Philippines, DEI, and Malaya out of supply? Well, the answer is no now. Again, no, because now there is the ABDA HQ, which means yes, we do need to figure out a way how to deal with that. Do we have more than 3 cards? Technically, yes. And do we control less than 13 resources? That is a yes, which means now we're looking at our logistics valuation. Um, and just in talking about that, it's like, are the total cards you have, providing a logistics value up to a certain point? We actually don't know that because of the hidden cards. So I kind of just have to, again, look at this F and be like, okay, what either of these things should be leaning to neutralizing those HQs and getting closer to DEI surrender, which from a strategic standpoint, that's obviously in my head, right? We've already conquered or on the verge of conquering the Philippines. Operating such that we can get into the DEI region is of paramount concern to me, so I do want to lean into that as my primary concern. Absolutely. So we're going to roll the die. See what we get. What do we get? We got a weird one. Okay. C or lowest face-up ops card or future offensive card. Ooh, this is actually not good. It might mean I don't get to play Central Force. That's a problem. Okay. If not already face up, flip the. Okay, so we have a counter offensive card. This could actually come in handy later. Uh, Okay, and then play card C or the lowest valued face-up ops card in slots A, B, or D, or E for any allowable purpose or a future offensives card. Um, okay, the exclamation point result has no result in this game. Okay, this is actually not good. This is okay, so good luck on the first card for Japan. Bad luck in the solitaire framework here because it means I can either play this as an ops card, right? Because this is a reaction card, which I don't think I want to do. I don't think that's a very strong card. Um, or I could play, basically, I'm forced into picking this card, which I didn't want to play yet. I actually had other plans for it, and the decision making here then is, and so this is contravening, it's in opposition to my Erasmus intention because I could use this to activate 4 units to make inroads against the DEI, but that might not be enough. I did want the extra. I could use 4 units as an ops card, or I'm sorry, 3 units as an ops. Yeah, this is not. This is trouble. This is trouble. I really wanted to play this card. So this is the first instance, guys, and this is what makes it exciting. Actually, this is not a bad thing. The Japanese want to do something. It is very clear. We are ready to rock and roll, baby. But something has gone wrong. My sort of Dutch East Indies analyst who has drawn up all the battle plans got like the flu and is sick and can't think straight, and we gotta make a decision. We gotta make something else happen, and it sounds like I've got to do this. So I could try to do a uh, suboptimal lower number of units activated offensive against the DEI proper. I am worried I would not have excuse me, enough of what I would need to make a difference. I would have to do something. Um, I'd have to do something to make that work. That's tricky. I'm going to struggle with that, guys. Or we just say, you know what, that's okay. We're going to play this, and maybe we're going to use it in the Malaya offensive and use this to activate 4 ground units, keep surprise attack, uh, which would limit the ability for the Allies to respond, which they couldn't really respond anyway, um, and make some progress against Burma and or uh, Malaya. And like that's not a bad choice. That might be something that we want to do, um, and make some terrestrial progress in Burma. I think that's what we're going to have to do, and just keep this card at the ready for next time. Now that's going to give the Allies maybe some opportunity to be better prepared in the Dutch East Indies, but they don't really have that many options anyway. So I think we're going to do this. That's a bummer. That's not what I wanted to do. But that is the fun of the solitaire system. Which so the Allies are feeling a little good, maybe, for a really bad turn. But now, the Japanese are gonna get some victory sickness and make a move that's maybe not optimal, but they may still be able to get some gains out of it. So we're gonna play this, despite my reservations about it, not wanting to do that yet. We've still got plenty of time in the turn to do our conquest of Borneo and Dutch East Indies pressure. So let me go play through that, see what I can do with this card. I don't think playing it as an ops card is really going to do anything that I would want to, other than maybe I could get into Batavia. Um, that still might be worth it. I just don't know. So, all right, let me go figure this out. Okay, here we are after running the Suji card, which again we didn't want to run, but we did. Um, we were able to activate the 4 units. Surprise attack was really important because it means we could attack some units that, as long as they didn't have an air unit in the hex we were attacking, could not actually support the combat. I don't think. I was trying to figure this out. Like surprise attack, you can have activated units become engaged, but like this air unit could not support the allied unit that was here that we attacked. So this was all very much a Burma Malaya action card that we chose to leverage for this. And I believe that that's the case, that we would not have any air if unless they were in the hex attacked itself. I could be wrong about that, but I'm reasonably confident. I read the rule book. A surprise attack. Who's involved in the combat? They have to be activated units, and the adjacent air units cannot be activated unless it is an intercept uh, status. And because it was surprise attack, they couldn't. I could be wrong. Someone, if I'm wrong, tell me how I'm wrong. I'm willing to accept that I'm wrong. I just don't think I am. So yeah, we did this. So we did 2 units activated over here that attacked and took the last hex in front of Singapore. Did that quite well. We also pushed now into Burma proper. That did not actually provide the opportunity for the Chindit's reaction card because we activated in Siam, and then entered Burma. But now that is going to start to be the possibility, and it's going to make Burma Rangoon a tougher nut to crack, honestly. But just reducing the steps while we can, threatening Burma is enough to put the pressure on, and we can eventually, work our way over. And then I did use the 4th activation to bring over the Hong Kong unit here into Hanoi because it does not have a natural garrison, and I don't want those Chinese units to be able to march down and deprive us of that port and then provide some allied support along the coast. I don't want that to be a possibility. So I moved that unit there, and then the thought being, if I had to, I could look at transporting him somewhere else. So I did use a shipping point. I'm fine with that for the moment. That's all good. So a good card in general, like the fact that we had the card to play anyway. It was not going to be in this order that I'd have preferred, but it ends up working out pretty well. on a future activation, we should be lined up reasonably well to start really trying to get into Singapore proper. It's got a very strong defensive unit there, but it doesn't have air cover. It is out of supply at the moment because of our ZOI coverage. Um, Whether or not the Allies try to stop it, is unknown. But we were picking up resource hexes along the way as well. So now we are at, I think, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Is that right? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, now 7. So 7 resources, which is pretty good, right? There's still a lot more to go, and they're predominantly going to be here, 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 here. But they're in sight. Rangoon in sight. They're all in sight. So we're for this still being like the first turn of active play, we're doing just fine. So that's it for the Allied play. Like there's not Allied play, Japanese play. Activate, basically 4 units with the South HQ. Logistics value of 3 + 1. No air units. So would have loved to have been beaten on that unit there because we could have taken a step off of him with this air unit had we activated him, but we could not with that card. I alternatively could have done it as a 3-unit activation by playing it as an ops card, but that would have enabled the possibility of it being turned into an intercept. And like I was willing to take the event as it was, so that was fine. Now we go back to the Allied card play. Right now, I've already looked at the possibilities here in terms of what the Allies would want to do. So they have more than 3 cards, only just though. Well, they have 4 cards, I guess. There's no longer an in-supply Allied HQ in the Philippines. There's not an in-supply Allied HQ in Malaya because we are covering the HQ with a ZOI, so I believe it to be out of supply. I'm reasonably confident that it is. We have played Arcadia, and so then the next question in the flowchart is, has the CBI defense been set? The China, Burma, India theater defense been set? And if the answer is no, then we try to reinforce that, and this is what that looks like. There's an actual unit to place guide that you would play an ops card and then use the activations to move these units, and that is some India, British units, Allied units, as well as Chinese units to a number of locations that are basically set up to protect Burma in general from threat from Japan, which does seem like a good time to do it because I am starting to pressure Burma, and it wouldn't take that much for me to kind of swing some units over there and shift my advance if I really wanted to. I could do that. I have enough capability that I could conceivably do that, or do that enough that it is a danger. So it makes sense that the Erasmus advisor is telling us to do this. We are going to roll the die as the Allies just to see what we get here. And we got a CDE result, which is actually really interesting. So CDE, if not already face up, flip all face down cards in C, D, and E, okay, and then play C, D, or E for any allowable purpose. So this is an interesting result in the solitaire system where we're going to reveal these 3 cards over here that we've never seen before. I don't know what's underneath there. And I'm going to get to play whichever one I want. So this is neat, but it means I'm not going to play any of these cards, which I think at the moment for the Allies, they're okay with that. So what do we get? We've got the Anakim operation, a Burma offensive. This might be a really reasonable one to use right now to just reposition units. So that's a fair option. We also have Operation Cherry Blossom, which is Bougainville landing, and it's not a bad card. I don't know what I would do with it yet, but it's not a bad card. I may simply want to use Burma offensive to get my units in shape for defense. That feels like a really obvious one. And then finally we get PT boats, which is best used once they play the barges card. So we may simply hold on to this for now or use it for ops. So yeah, those are the options. I think what's going to make the most sense right now is to use our Anakim operation and just set up a Burmese defense. I think that's the easy option that is aligned with the the Erasmus guidance, and we do want to protect that because again, what could happen is if we lose Rangoon as the allies, then the Chinese front becomes much more dangerous, and I might throw out the Erasmus bot and say, you know what, I'm going to drill in on the Chinese front as Japan, and that could really hurt the allies. So I think we're going to do that, and then we'll be aligning the I think I'm doing that right. I think you're supposed to draw out and not shift it over. I don't know. That I have to look up. I'm a little worried I'm doing that wrong, but we'll have played that. Cards remaining is going to go down to 3, and I will again. I'm going to any HQ. So we're going to use the just so you can see what I'm talking about. Here we do have an HQ in northern India that's going to be able to trace to units in this region. And we're going to adjust the defense here to where these guys are set up a bit more coherently, and we have less danger of Burma falling early on. So the important thing with this one, logistics value 3, so we're going to be able to activate 4 units. There's not much in the, like, it's unlikely that the Japanese are going to be able to, like, make any sort of response to this. Only ground and air units may be activated, and I'm not entirely sure I'm going to go on the offensive here. It's going to take most of these units as movement just to get into the locations that I want them in for defense purposes, but we're going to play that and go from there. Okay, here's the result of the Allied play here. Pretty straightforward, right? Like, we didn't have enough movement points to really engage properly against the Japanese invasion, but we did reshuffle our defenders, so there is now a robust 12-12 unit in Rangoon itself. Has air cover support, and what else? We moved some of these other units out of Rangoon to cover this additional air base that could maybe pose a problem. I don't know if this makes sense to I don't know that I feel like that's optimal, but this is what the Erasmus chart indicates, so I'm fine with that. And then we see, so we activated 4 units. So this unit coming into here, this unit who moved out to here, and then 2 Chinese units that are set up in a defensive posture protecting the Burma Road. And you can kind of see where, in absence of Rangoon, these transport routes that are yet to be built are safely behind this defensive line, which would enable us to create the alternate route for the Burma Road if as we need to, and we should probably invest in that eventually, but we'll see how it goes. So again, a very defensive move, not creating actual battle hexes, pretty weak operation generally, and the Japanese couldn't really do anything, so that was fine. It just okay, an allied shuffle move, that's fine. If we actually look at if these guys were to fight, and let's just assume that we get some air repositioned up here to cause some pain, the Japanese could maybe cause a step loss, but not knock out this Indian unit in one fell swoop. We would need some additional help, either from an additional unit like this guy and pulling him up, or this guy, or something. Like, we would need more than what we have, unless we rolled really well and got a double strength, doing 40 hits. That would be enough, but all it would take is a 1 times hit from this defender to hurt that Japanese unit. We want to be careful of over expenditure of Japanese steps, right? Grabbing Rangoon is really good, but already the Allies are in a good position to kind of make up for it if they were to lose Rangoon to to the Japanese. So now we're going to go back to our setup over here, guys, for working the next Japanese card. So um, have to double check. I'm making sure I'm not counting wrong. Yeah, we're on the right set. Okay. In terms of strategy from Erasmus, guys, this next move for Japan is going to be the flow chart would indicate that we need to continue to neutralize HQs. There is an active unblocked HQ in the form of the ABDA command now, which is in GlatJap. So ostensibly, we are going to go try to neutralize that, but at the same time, we're going to be working on invading the Dutch East Indies anyway. Now, to show what is it going to cause the DEI to surrender, well, we're going to end up grabbing here, so we'll have Borneo done, but then we will need to capture this hex, this hex, that hex. And I think Batavia matters somewhere along the way, something like that. We still need to get the resource hexes, so we got to put some work into it. Still, there's still a lot of places, and I don't feel like we've got enough of my forces moved up to actually hit everywhere I would want. So it's still going to be like several card plays to get this job done, which is going to be a struggle. We still need to take out Singapore at some juncture, so there's a lot of factors in there. So that's what Erasmus is going to point us to do. We're going to roll our die to see what the actual card selection choices are going to be. So we'll roll that now. We have a lot of unrevealed cards that we're not sure what we're going to do with, or whether or not it will matter. I will mention I did pull that PT Boats card off the deck and put it in spot E. Because if I was rereading the CDG Solar System rules, it does imply that you draw it off the top of that draw deck, even if it's face up, and put it in the empty slot, which means, we basically have one unrevealed card for the Allies on top of the C deck. But anyway, so now we have the Japanese die roll. We'll do that, see what we get. And we got a E less than, which I think we've gotten this one before. If there is only one or no face-up cards on the display, that's not true. Flip any one face-down card face-up. Play any face-up event card, or play the lowest valued face-up ops card. Okay, well, this is easy, guys. I'm just going to play the Central Force, and we're going to go ahead and make use of this. So we'll be activating 6 units, ideally, here. We are going to focus on the DEI as best we can. Prior to movement, we place a Japanese control marker in a hex that is within extended range of an active Japanese air unit. If the hex is either unoccupied or is occupied solely by a Dutch regiment, and the hex is not within an unneutralized ZOI, eliminate the Dutch regiment. So as we go to play this, just to show what I think I'm going to do with that is, we could actually choose Palembang. I don't know if that really gets us where we want and how I want to go. It would also be useful to get Madan because it's kind of a little bit out of the way. Otherwise, I was going to go for Balikpapan, which truly we could get via conventional means by grabbing with our infantry there. So I've got a few different options that could matter. I'm not exactly sure how I want to roll this yet, but I am going to try to play it through. Originally, the idea truly was Balikpapan, but I think we could deal with that differently. Though marching through the jungle actually would be painful, and we wouldn't get there. So maybe I do need to just grab it and then make inroads over here, and then that's just the way it's got to go. So anyway, that's what we're going to do. Central Force card, we'll play that, and then we'll show the aftermath. Okay, here we are after the finishing of the central, Central Force Offensive. The Japanese got away with something, convenient. And we got the bends, and if you don't know what I mean by the bends, it's cases where um, you roll the best or near the best that you could roll, or pretty good, and your opponent rolls the absolute worst. And sometimes you get that back to back, and that's like the outer bends, um, or something along those lines, right? Where like it just couldn't go any worse, and those back to back events can be devastating. Here, it was just a natural bend, which is the Allies just rolled the absolute wrong thing, which is a real bummer for them. So let's break this down. We played it. We did six unit activations. Our goal, essentially, to get into Java, which we've succeeded. We are now in Batavia at the moment, and are putting the ABDA HQ at a supply, or at a, neutralized essentially, which is just really not good, because now it means the Allies are going to have a greater difficulty in responding to anything we do in this area, and we can kind of at our leisure almost. There's still some danger, but we can pick up these remaining resource hexes over the next couple of card plays and get that wrapped up, and like we'll be sitting pretty happy. So how'd this play out? Well, first thing I did is I set things up to where I was going to drop into Batavia, which had the Dutch naval unit in it, which meant that when I sent this unit over using a shipping point, and he was a single step when he left here and came over, he had to come with the Nachi cruiser, because they have to be together the whole time that you're entering a hex that already has an enemy naval unit. So we had to do that. The special move we did at the very beginning, though, after we activated everybody we were going to activate, I grabbed Balikpapan. So we got rid of the regiment, put a control marker. This was important because we had this air unit, which was stationed over here. He was able to hop here and then use extended range to get over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get involved in the combat. And half strength, we were able to send this guy down as well. And then we had the Congo come down here and get involved as additional support. So we had multiple units, great big fight, managed to roll a 1, basically, result. The Allies couldn't do enough damage to hurt anybody on our side, which was peachy keen. We got a 1 result. That was enough to eliminate the Dutch units and send the US Asia unit packing back to this hex, which he's just a speed bump now at this point. I could have maybe sent him farther away. I don't know what else to do. Kind of hard to figure out, like, what else can I do to slow down the Japanese. Maybe I should send them over here. I don't know. Point is, we took care of that. Now, part of the real sequence of events was I had set that up after movement, and this was going to be an otherwise, clean getaway here. But we figured that because we were entering an enemy ZOI, because there was the Dutch air unit here, that this was going to turn into an intercept, right? And it did. But to help provide coverage, I had sent the Ryojo on a kind of a crazy mission down here, and he masked Darwin so that these guys could not come up. Dutch units can't do amphibious assault, so that was going to be like the only option, was to maybe grab a British unit and try to make something happen. And this would have been the only guy, I think, in range that could have made a difference there. So we masked him and sort of interdicted his ability to move by... The carrier couldn't hurt him, granted, but it disrupted it anyway. So doing some masking, which is very important in this game, to like stop the opponent from trying to make something happen with reinforcements. So you like cover the hexes. That's what we did. Now, the real tricky bit was we did react. We reacted in our unit there. We reacted in this unit. And, basically, like, we didn't have a lot of options, but we did, we had, for the moment, the ability to try to bring in reinforcements. So we put in as much as we could. The air-naval combat obviously went very poorly. The trick with the ground combat was because the Dutch unit was not there when we entered the hex. This is really important. You got to read the rule book to get this right, not just the combat table. They had to have been there before I got in there uh, to have. We did have a special reaction, right? So like we turned that into a battle hex anyway, and it would have been, I guess, with the Dutch unit. The point was, we reacted this guy in, but because he reacted in, he doesn't get the +3 reaction player die roll bonus in ground combat. They had to have been there when you arrived. So we had this case where, we were set up like this. Um, Unfortunately, the Allies rolled a 0. So it was a flat die roll for both sides. We had air superiority, but there was still the U.S. Asia unit here at the time, and so it ended up like +2, -2, flat die roll for everybody. The Allies roll a 0, which means they did half strength, which even, so 6 halved to 3. The defense was halved due to amphibious assault to 6, but 3 isn't enough to affect 6, so the Japanese were fine. And then we rolled an 8, which is 1.5, which is the only thing that would have hurt these guys. Had we rolled anything less than 7, we would have done, not enough hits either way. We would have had to retreat because defender, I believe, wins ties, but we actually rolled enough to cause 1 step because 1.5 times 9 is, 14, 15. We could flip it. They were forced to retreat into Jap, and then post combat movement, like we're hanging out here again, masking the HQ, um, kind of being in a good reactive position here, and again we can hit these hexes, not quite at our leisure. I'm also feeling very thinly spread out here. I don't have a lot. Like the Zuiho and the Congo are kind of watching over Borneo at this point. We still need to grab these other hexes to force the collapse and surrender of the Dutch East Indies. We can still do that, right? Like we would need to activate still several more units to get into all of these places that we want to get into. We do need to clear, this last division. So we're not out of the woods with Dutch East Indies yet. Like there's still work to do, and we still need to take out Singapore. But things are shaping up pretty nice, right? So getting over to the Allies, what the Allies are going to do, just looking at the chart, there is technically an action we could still take to improve the Chinese Burma theater, Burma theater, India theater. My gosh, CBI, to move a Chinese unit into a hex. I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to like lean into, well, what would you have me do otherwise, Erasmus? Which is to play an event if we have a good one, and I'm not sure we really do have a good one. Event strategy, like play a card that's a political event type of thing. But anyway, okay, so we got ABC, and okay, well, what's this? We got Edwin Booz, future Boozal and Hamilton, maybe, a little BAH. Defense consultant, allied player immediately receives 1 permanent amphibious shipping point. That's not a bad one just to take. Like if I do it, we do it as an investment, and it gives us at least 1 more allied shipping point to use this turn, which we might need because we've used. Did we use 1? No, we didn't use 1. Yeah, I don't know. No, we didn't use 1, right? I think I accidentally moved the marker, or it got moved by accident. I don't think we've actually done an amphibious. No, I don't think we have. But this is an investment for the future. Like, play it now, get it out of the way. There's not much that I can do, right? I can't activate the AB to HQ anymore. I can maybe activate the Burma stuff, but there's not much for me to do. And then I could activate the Central Pacific and start to do some things with the Americans proper, but I think they're waiting for some reinforcements to come in. So I'm kind of stuck on that one, guys. Like what could be done that would allow us to make a big difference on the game map, and Right now, I'm struggling to see exactly. Well, okay. I don't know. Looking at Oahu, this is tough. I'm going to follow through with Erasmus and just accept kind of what we're dealing with here, and we'll play this for an event, maybe ill-advised, but that will work for us, and that will lead us to having two cards remaining, but also two passes as it happens, and then we go back to the Japanese side. So yeah, I'm gonna wonder. Like it's hard to see when I really look at the Erasmus bot, like what would get us back in the game. And if you just look at all the options, like there's a question of let's see. Yeah, the problem is like these things like the CBI defense, these are all housekeeping things like we need to get in place before we can even consider doing plan orange or something, and we're just really out of shape on it. But anyway, I think we're going to go back to the Japanese side and determine what to do there. Really quick, guys, I decided to take back that event card. The Erasmus bot, when it talks about event strategy, gives you some order of operations. You actually aim to put a future offensive card, which I've done over here with that S Day card. I think it's a good card. Right now, I'm not in a great position to make great use of it, but I'll hang on to it, and we'll get that situated like so. So that'll work. That will work. Now, for the Japanese, getting back to the Japanese, are there allied HQs in the Philippines, DEI, and or are they out of supply? Oh, yes, they are. Uh, so that's the first time we've passed the A condition of us just shutting down the HQs, but we managed to do it. The next line item here is, are the DEI surrender objectives occupied? Well, the answer is no. We have some that are outstanding. So then we ask, gee, is it game turn 3 or later? Well, the answer is no, it is not game turn 3 or later. So then we have to ask, out of supply, yes. Do we have 3 or more cards? We have 4 cards, I believe, because we played 3, right? Yeah. So 3 or more cards. So yeah, the answer is yes. And then D, does Japan control less than 13 resource hexes? Yes, that is true. And then we ask, is the logistics evaluation value 20 or more? Well, what's the difference? Well, it's going to send us to Southern Resource Strategy, either an aggressive one or a conservative one, so that you can see this is really the decision tree that we went A, B, G, down here, F. We're not going to bother. We're not going to worry about calculating this. This is just to give us an idea what we should focus on. Southern Resource Strategy. And when you look at, let's see, am I going to get this, be able to get this on camera? Oh, yeah, okay, they are on here. I'm just blind. Aggressive would be to be shooting for DEI surrender or Malaya surrender or Philippines surrender. DEI, obviously, going to be the objective here. Otherwise, conservative is neutralization while focusing on Malaya surrender. I think being aggressive is probably fine right now. Like I don't know if it really matters. But then we look at like these boxes. So if we were going for DEI neutralization, we'd be going after Jolo, Makassar. I'm gonna not even try the rest of these guys. But the main thing is like those are they're like adjacent hexes that help us focus in on attacking or putting out of supply units elsewhere. If we're going to force surrender, which is much more my speed, then we look at this prioritization where Balikpapan, we got that. Tarakan, we got that. Batavia, we actually got that, right? So now we focus on Jalatjep and Sarabaja, which are reasonably close, and then the outer remnants of Bangka, Palembang, and Medan. which are indeed the rest of the hexes that we care about for conquering the Dutch East Indies. So that's very sensible. That makes sense to me. Yes, we should focus on these things. I am 100% behind that idea. We should definitely do that. Let's do that. But we got to roll our die to see. Right now, we've got a lot of unknown options here, so this die roll may be important. We got CDE. So we're going to flip all these guys up. Well, if I could pick the card up, that would be great. Ooh, we got a Tojo Resigns. Okay, we don't need to. It is going to force a reshuffle. Otherwise, we got some really mid-looking cards, guys. I don't see any threes. That's a bummer, man. That's a bummer. That's a bummer. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Well, we're gonna have to figure this out. Obviously, this is probably our best one. Attack on Milne Bay, Operation RE. Any HQ, we'd be picking the South HQ. Logistics value, so we'd get a 4 out of it. 4 units to activate, and then we get a +1 ground combat die. Okay. If any brigade-sized ground units are involved in ground combat. If any brigade size. But we could certainly, I think we could make that happen. I think we could make that work. So I think this is going to be the choice, guys. So we'll kind of do this with the cards, one more card. And we're going to use this to continue the offensive in DEI and see what happens there, guys. Okay, we completed our operation. That has seen the capture of Palembang as well as Jap. Being able to just terrestrially, I don't know if that's the right word, attack a hex, has some benefits here, and we were able to rock that. So, now it's kind of this weird thing. Like I'm reasonably confident that I can walk over to this hex to capture it. And then, we basically just need to do a invasion up here, an invasion here. I've got a couple different options I could use to get there. I don't want to have to walk there because it's going to take, 1-2 movement points, and we won't have enough to actually get into this hex. So we need to kind of drop in navally. Might not necessarily be hard, but I do need to think about how I'm gonna do it because of that unit right there. It's gonna pose some challenges. I'm gonna have to think this through. I actually might not be set up very well because I should have activated. I think my power just flickered. Yeah, I've got some goofiness here, guys. This U.S. Asia unit is definitely a problem. I think my power flickered again. Uh-oh. This could pose a challenge if I lose power. Anyway, success, progress. We only need a couple more of these resource hexes. 3 more, but they're all within our grasp and not a lot of options available for the Allies. The only thing they could maybe do, I'm trying to think this through, I could maybe try to get some Indian units, or not even Indian units, because they can't, that's right, they can't use amphibious movement. So this guy's screwed. This is a matter of time. So is this, really. It's not going to take much for us to run over the destroyers. We're just going to have to... I'm going to have to... my card play is not... I have some goofiness here. I have to get this cruiser with this guy, or move this guy to here, and then they can navally invade somewhere. So that whole thing of why we set up those units on the emergency naval move is making sense, because it just makes it a little bit more logistically harder to get into this hex than what we can do right this second. And that's a little frustrating, but it makes total sense. And I'm not doing a good job of stewarding my forces. I need to start using cards for some strategic movement to get things kind of co-located. And when I think about this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We still could go from Tainan on a 3 card, mind you, uh, all the way down in here. The fact that that last card was a 2 card, we were already locally in our area. So I've got some work to do as Japan. Now, on the Allied side, they're kind of in a pickle because there's not a lot for us generally to do. We've got some limitations. The chart here indicates that eventually, like, we get to the point where we're being forced to do an offensive attack here. If no objectives are available, and we follow all of the um, all of the things that we're trying to keep track of, it leads us to an offensive attack, which, if no objectives are available, then execute an air naval attack against the weakest Japanese with a damage level of 1x. I think that's just saying, like, if you can do a step loss, try to do it. Priority order is air alone, air naval, then naval. If Japan reaction could eliminate last USN carrier, then one carrier should be withheld from the attack. So there is a question, like, maybe we can use, just off camera here, right here, we can use the U.S. naval fleet to try to poke a hole somewhere. Unfortunately for us, it's really hard to find a place where we could actually affect that change. And it could simply be that we're going to try to attack in the Marshalls at Kwajalein, which not an ideal attempt, but we also have to roll our solo die. So let's do that for the Allies. They've got 2 card plays remaining. They have 2 passes. They're going to start to use their passes soon. They've got 1 more shot that they can make something happen. And we roll a C thing. If we're not already face up, flip the card. Okay, gonna do that. Oh, Operation Galvanic. Okay, Galvanic. We could play that or the lowest valued face-up ops card in A, B, D, or E. Would be playing that. I don't think we want to do that. This is also a good card that I don't know that I want to use right now. We could do a surprise attack. Conditions: only 1 ground unit of any size may be activated during this offensive. Interesting. We could maybe make something happen here, guys. Like, if the choice is either this or that, like, what am I going to do with this? Like, that's not going to do enough. I need to think on this, but you guys will see the result here. This could be an opportunity to, like, yes, use our forces to strike back, or even alternatively, we could try to push back near Burma with a concentration of force. I don't think I have the oomph to really do that necessarily, but we could try. So yeah, this is actually a really tough call for the Allies. So I'll play through it. I'll let you guys know, obviously, what we decide. Okay, guys, I had to do some thinking because the attempt to do an offensive right now would just lead to utter disaster for the Allies. In order to try to go on a raid that could conceivably cause a step loss, we'd have to send our carriers to Kwajalein, and I have this reaction card of the Japanese that could bring in the main fleet out of Japan and get them down to Kwajalein. And it would mean the elimination of a carrier unit. Now, I could say, if I follow the Erasmus guidance, not send all of my carriers, but whatever I send would get chewed up so bad, because even if the Galvanic would make it a surprise attack, we could make it an intercept. And really, having that as our option here, I mean, that's just a really good card. that the Japanese can sit on for a while. That I think knowing that this is forcing the Allies to have to wait for these reinforcements to come in, so they actually have a way to like make a difference somewhere. As it is right now, just trying to send those guys out, it takes most of their movement to get out to this region. They can't quite get out here, and even if they did, they wouldn't be able to do all the damage that they would need. So, really feel like the Allies are stuck. So, I decided to go ahead and play the Edwin Booz card now. Get that extra ASP. Let's just build up. Let's take our punches and be ready to hit back when we can. So, that kind of puts us back in the Japanese frame of mind, which we continue our opening phase bit here. Do we have 3 or more cards? Yeah, we still do. Do we have less than 13 resource hexes? Yep, that's the case. And so, what else? F, logistics value. It's getting late for me, guys. My brain's starting to fall apart. Yes, okay. Are the DEI surrender objectives occupied? No. Is it game turn? No. Do we have 3 more cards? Yes, and yes. F. We're going to go for ultimately a surrender objective. Yeah, we're just going to go. Yeah, of course we are. Of course that's what we're going to do. What else would we be doing? Now the cards. I'm going free cam, guys. I don't have my stand on at the moment. I'm going to roll my die. We got A, B, C. So we're going to get to flip these guys and see what our options are. We got a War in Europe card. And then we have an Operation IGO air offensive. Only air units may be activated. That's not really what I want to do. I could do ants, and the important thing is here we would get our logistics value of 3. We'd get to activate 4 units, and that could, in theory, get us enough to capture most of the remaining resource hexes. We could also just try to use this as, yeah, that's not going to work. We're going to have to play this at some point for ops. I could hold on to this. Like, this would be good to get in place, honestly. If I were to use it, yeah, this is tricky, guys. I think we'll go ahead and oh no, I can't use E. What am I doing, guys? I have to pick A, B, or C. Which is a bummer because I think I'd want to use this for the event. But I'm going to use this not as an event, but as an OC. Right? So we're going to use this 3 card. We're going to activate 4 units because 3 plus our south HQ of 1 will get us 4 units to activate. I might be able to get all the remaining resource hexes with this. We'll see. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play this. This takes us down to 2 cards, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be card 5. Yeah. So Operation IGO, but not as an air offensive, but as a trying to wrap up the Dutch East Indies while we can. All right, guys, just covering a couple of things. We're getting into sort of like late stage bits where the Allies are afraid to do anything. They actually are passing. The Erasmus bot is kind of informing us, hey, we're getting down to our last card. We're going to go ahead and pass and use up all our passes, which they've done. In the meantime, the Japanese player did play Tojo Resigns as an ops card that they used to activate 2 units, and they were able to make some progress. They eliminated the 1 Allied naval unit here, and then did manage to conquer Madonna up there, and so then we had a subsequent card played, which allowed us. I'm getting like my orders of operations here screwed up, guys. Um, we've played a subsequent card now. I'm getting the order out. I'm getting the order wrong here. There's something. This is what happens when I skip ahead a little bit. But I played through a couple cards, and we basically are cleaning up. I did just try also to attack Singapore with an air unit to try to reduce the ground unit, but that failed. So that's good for the Allies. But everything else is pretty much looking grim. Not much else for them to do. And so now we're going to be playing. I believe this is going to end up being our last card, but we're going to use it to play ants. So we're going to get the barge movement stuff. We're not going to make, it's probably going to get shot right out by the PT boats card eventually, but we're going to play this. This is mostly just to clean up Singapore and end that, and then we're able to move on to other things as we're capturing most all of the resource hexes that we need. There's still going to be Vogelkop and Rangoon that are going to be out there, but we will have captured the vast majority of the stuff that we really needed, which is the important thing. So I'm going to play through that and just try to get us towards the end here of the turn. Okay, so with this one, guys, I decided to abandon Erasmus because I didn't like what Erasmus was asking me to do because it just felt like that was going to be worse. So I decided to play as the Allies' PT boats. So we just, the Japanese got barges. They instantly lost barges. Um, and then we got to draw another card. So the Allies got to go again. And this time we played the Black Day card. I rolled the die. I got a DE. So I had to use cards from here. We had Black Day here. We used it. Air units, whatever. I ended up using it as an OC so that the Japanese would not be able to intercept. And then we did an air raid on this Japanese unit. We actually took a step away, which, there's only so many Japanese ground steps. So the fact that we can reduce that is actually a huge deal. We may be able to go on a counteroffensive this next turn and put pressure on Siam, which would be convenient. But if we look at the rest of the map here, we did the last card play for the Japanese. They did. They used the Ants card event operation and attacked into Singapore and finished that up. There's still a couple of things out there that are worrisome for the Japanese to worry about. We did spend some time co-locating our Marines with cruisers so that we've got some organic transport that's going to come in handy later. But generally, I'd say the Japanese are happy with the operations phase. We do need to talk about the rest of the turn. So we should kind of work our way through that as well. So as it stands, we're going to look at the national status segment, U.S. political will segment. Main thing is we're going to have conquered the Dutch East Indies. These units will go away, I believe, and then we're going to end up putting, control markers on most everything else that matters. The same type of thing is going to happen here with the Philippines. I'll step through that very quickly, and then we'll look at the national will stuff that's going to be tied to it. So there's no progress of war requirement, right? Like the Allies are still responding, but these conquering opportunities are going to help knock down some of the U.S. Political will, which will be helpful and just get things cleaned up. So I'm going to run through that really quick off camera, and then we'll wrap up the video, I think. All right, guys. So here I am trying to fix things up. Dutch East Indies surrendered. Malaya surrendered. Philippines surrendered. There's some evacuations happening, getting moved over. Here's the weird thing. So then I went to the attrition test, and all the Australians from like here down are out of supply because they can't trace Like the one good HQ on the map is the US 25 range HQ here, but 25 hits to be about here in terms of I counted the hexes like several times. There's a little bit of a Zoc issue there or a Zoe issue there, but like you can count around it. Point is, like Australia itself is out of supply and is taking attrition now. That seems weird, and there's probably things I could have done to stop it, like moving the HQ or setting up the ABDA HQ differently than I did. And I do wonder if, like, maybe I really screwed the pooch on that. When I look at the ABDA, you know, I guess we could have put it somewhere else in the Dutch East Indies, but the Dutch East Indies just got pounded into the dirt, and I think this is intended. We do get. It is likely that we're going to get some additional HQs next turn via the Anzac HQ. But I think that like this natural attrition is part of like the game's planned execution. Like we might have been able to change that if we had done some other moves, maybe try to react these Australian units around, but we covered that guy at one point. So the U.S. political will dropped by 3 for the surrenders. Really, you can see like the map is clearly divided at this point. We have like full Japanese control. We've got the Burma theater kind of, getting intense now that we're pushing back, and we managed to do some damage to the Japanese units there. And then we have really like the U.S. Navy waiting for like these reinforcements and other stuff to come in to have really any shot at making something happen. So, I mean, if you look at the historical record, I'd say things are kind of, they're going well for the Japanese. Now that they're done with this, they can start to focus elsewhere. But that's going to wrap it for what is actually turn 2 here, guys. So we're done with turn 2 of the whole game, and we'll cover turn 3. The Allies are going to get some HQs back. They're going to get multiple HQs. They're going to start to get their wits about them. But it's going to make for a tough couple of turns as now the Japanese can start to focus. They can bring their navy down and really fight for some of these other regions now that we've got most of our resources underway. I do need to update my resource counter and what resources we're in control of. We still need to grab Vogelkop here in New Guinea, so we will eventually do that. Need to get into Rangoon, but overall we've got a good set of resource hexes, so that's very good. That'll do it for this one, guys. Kind of a long video. I'm sure this is going to be like an incredibly long video. As someone who's just trying to bang my way through the game, obviously Erasmus is going to suggest things that maybe don't make sense all the time. I've kind of done my own thing in a few spots just to not lead my carriers to being destroyed as the Allies, get some events out that can help us long term. But it's early game. We don't know what's going to happen yet. The Japanese have had reasonably good luck, really made out like a bandit in a couple of situations. That luck will not run forever, and really all the Allies need are a couple of good luck die rolls to shatter the Japanese fleet beyond repair. So we'll see that probably fall back on them later in the campaign. That's it for this one, guys. We'll see you in the next video for turn 3. Take care. Keep on gaming.